Good early afternoon. We are live. I'm Andy Andrews. You have joined us on the Blue Plate Special in Orange Beach, Alabama. We are Wisdom Harbor Studios here at the Wharf. We're home of the famous Marlin statues and, of course, the infamous escalator statues. Make sure you get your picture taken when you visit here. We're excited about this today. We've got a lot of people in the studio from all over, and we've got celebrity. We have Ron Reams here. Ron Reams, Mobile Radio. So we have Ron, we have Sharon, Jacinta, Emma from Mobile. Where are you guys? Hey. And then Melissa from Sims. Hey, Melissa, how are you doing? I'm glad you're over here, and I'm glad it's a pretty day today. Ken and Mary Stevens from Dunedin, Florida, right? I pronounced that correctly, didn't I? Okay. I mean, you hate to pronounce name of somebody's town wrong, even though when I'm in Albany, Georgia, I refuse to pronounce it Albany. I just can't say that. I can't say that. I'm sorry. I hate to tell a whole town they're saying it wrong, but I can't do that. Shane and Terry and Rob and Tina from Lubbock, Texas. How did you guys feel when Mac Davis wrote that song about you guys? Happiness is Lubbock, Texas in your rearview mirror. I mean, I don't know though. Sometimes, in the height of snowbird season, we can wish they'd written a song about us here. Sometimes there seems to be too many snowbirds, but we like it. There's a couple of times a year when the tourists are gone and the snowbirds haven't arrived yet, and man, you could play frisbee on the beach road. I mean, there's just nobody here. And so it's great. Gary from Franklin, Tennessee. Hey, Gary. How are you doing, man? And let's see. Patricia Clapp from North Carolina. She's in North Carolina. Chuck Calhoun from soggy Dallas, Georgia. Now, see, there's one of those town names that when you say, I'm from Dallas, people go, oh. And you have to go, Georgia. Yeah, I'm from Philadelphia. Really? Mississippi. Yes. I'm from Lebanon. Wow. Tennessee. So, Kristen Smith, hello to you. We have a great show today. If you're new to us and if you're on Facebook, I want to urge you to please click your notification button, and turn your notifications on your phone. That way, when we go live, anytime we go live here at Wisdom Harbor Studios, you will be notified. Also, if you're on YouTube, we're glad to have you. Click that subscription button. Also, and on Facebook, please share. This is going to be a great show. Just share to your page. Don't be stingy. Just share it to your page and let other people have the fun that we are having here. Okay? LinkedIn, glad to have you here. Twitter people with your Captain Brian Batten. And we're glad you are here. We've got more people coming in the studio. Margaret Davis Hupp, greetings from Northeast Mississippi. Did you enjoy the interview with Armin and Albert? Man, I'm telling you, the professional noticer just came out today. And so the professional noticer, we had Armin and Albert, the guys who created the songs from the 7 Decisions. And so they were great guests and just tremendous guys and incredibly talented. And Armin is the voice of the Kentucky Derby. Can you believe that? How about that? So, Chad Baldwin, good to see you, buddy. Philip Dooley, howdy. How do you like the shirt? You like the shirt? The shirt is from Sand Dollar Lifestyles, the huge cornerstone of the Wharf. Millions of shirts, sometimes tens of millions of shirts and shoes and They got everything. Bullwhips. I mean, I don't know if they have bullwhips, but that sounded like a good thing to say. Thomas McMillan from Connecticut. Philip Dooley says, your daughter lives in Cuba, Alabama. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's just weird to me that the towns that are named like that. So, just very odd. Larry Pratt from Port Orchard, Washington. Guess what we're doing today? We're going to go literary on you. We're going to go all literary on you. We're going to talk about some of the best opening paragraphs ever. And you know, why are we going to talk about that? Well, I think opening paragraphs have a lot to do with whether somebody's going to stick with a book or not. Certainly me, I mean, with my ADD times 5, I just, you know, Les Dawson, hi from Utah. Zelona Radar, good afternoon from Nebraska. And I just think, you know, people tell me a lot of times that, well, I hear, well, I don't really read. You know, I don't really read. And I said, really? And I said, yeah, I just, you know, never really liked to read. And I think, really, you don't like to read? And I want to say, do you like to fish? Do you like to fish? And sometimes, you know, I can imagine people going, nah, I don't like to fish. Really? You don't like to have that bobber out there and a little kid beside you, and the bobber starts to move, and the kid goes, ooh, look, we're getting a bite. Wait. And the bobber starts going, he's taking it. And the bobber goes underwater. He's got it to pull. You pull, and that fish is zipping back and forth, and the kid's going, you got him. I mean, you telling me you don't like that? Oh, you like that? You just don't like waiting. Okay, well, I don't like waiting either. You need to go fishing with me sometime. If the fish aren't biting, we move and go somewhere else where they're biting. We don't wait. Nobody likes to wait. But if somebody ever made you wait, you probably don't like fishing. And I think kind of the same thing about reading. I think you don't like to read. You're telling me that you've never read anything that made you laugh out loud? You never read anything that brought tears to your eyes? You never read anything that you sent to every email contact on your list? Oh, so you have done that. So you just don't like to read boring things. Yeah, well, me either. I don't like, and see, that's what I think happens to a lot of people. I think somebody made them read a boring book, and it just about killed them. And so they thought they didn't like to read. I'd say just find some author that doesn't bore you to tears. Okay, just find something that's not boring. And so that's why, to me, I try really hard to do something at the very first that just like grabs people or something. Okay, so anyway, I thought we would go through 10 or 11 of the best opening paragraphs that I know of, and then I'm going to read the opening paragraph in some of my books and see how I stack up. We'll let you decide how I stack up, even though I probably won't stack up well to Hemingway and Twain. Okay, but we're going to start with, this is the first paragraph from Appointment with Death by Agatha Christie. You do see, don't you, that she's got to be killed? The question floated out into the still night air, seemed to hang there a moment, and then drift away down into the darkness toward the Dead Sea. Okay, I want to find out that. I want to find out why she's got to be killed and who she is and why you're killing somebody on a sea that's already dead. You know, I mean, I want to find out. So I'd keep reading that. All right. This is a great one. This was Norman MacLean's book, A River Runs Through It. Okay? Listen to this first paragraph. I love this. In our family, there was no clear line between religion and fly fishing. We lived at the junction of great trout rivers in western Montana, and our father was a Presbyterian minister and a fly fisherman who tied his own flies and taught others. He told us about Christ's disciples being fishermen, and we were left to assume, as my brother and I did, that all first-class fishermen on the Sea of Galilee were fly fishermen, and that John, the favorite, was a dry fly fisherman. I think that's awesome. All right. And I like fishing books anyway. I mean, you got me hooked if you say fishing.
Sure.
You know, you got me. Okay, this is a classic book. Margaret Mitchell, Gone with the Wind. Now, I will tell you that Gone with the Wind was turned down by 32 publishers before it was accepted. So 32 of the finest minds in the publishing world, which finest minds and publishing world is certainly an oxymoron, but 32 of the finest minds in the publishing world did not see the potential of a book that has sold multi-millions of copies. I don't think it was the fault of the first paragraph. Here's the first paragraph. Scarlett O'Hara was not beautiful, but men seldom realized it when caught by her charm, as the Tarleton twins were. In her face were too sharply blended the delicate features of her mother, a coast aristocrat of French descent, and the heavy ones of her florid Irish father. But it was an arresting face, pointed of chin, square of jaw. Her eyes were pale green, without a touch of hazel, starred with bristly black lashes and slightly tilted at the ends. Above them, her thick black brows slanted upward, cutting a startling oblique line in her magnolia white skin, that skin so prized by Southern women and so carefully guarded with bonnets, veils, and mittens against the hot Georgia sun. Boy, that paints a picture, doesn't it? I mean, that paints a picture of a beautiful woman in a stupid bonnet, I guess, you know. Bonnets are so stupid. That's just stupid. Okay, now I have included this first paragraph, even though this is not from an actual book. This is from a fictional piece of fiction. How about that? Calvin Hobbes, Calvin and Hobbes was a cartoon written by Bill Watterson, and so Calvin had an alter ego who was a private detective, and he wrote a book called Tracer Bullet. All right, and so this is the first line, the first fictional line in a fictional book. The dame's scream hid an octave usually reserved for calling dogs, but it meant I had a case, and the sound of greenbacks slapping across my palm is music to my ears any day. After all, I'm not an opera critic, I'm a private eye. I think that's very cool. It's like one of those old Raymond Chandler novels or Mickey Spillane novels. You remember when Mickey Spillane used to do light beer commercials? Yeah, remember? I mean, here's this author doing light beer commercials. And I actually was on a plane one time with Mickey Spillane after those commercials came out, so I knew who he was, and I had read a couple of his books, and I had not begun to write yet. I was working as a comedian, and I said, well, what advice do you have for a writer? What, somebody who might write a book in the future? What advice do you have? He said, put something you want in the book, kid. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, every book I write, I have a boat that has 2 Mercury motors in it. And the Mercury Outboard Motor Company comes every year and changes out my motors. I'm like, okay. All right, I get it. Okay, so here is the opening paragraph from The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, this is a book a lot of us had to read in high school, and I've never been that big of a Hobbit fan, okay, but I do think this is a cool first paragraph because it tells you kind of what's happening, So, in a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Now, I mean, that just kind of tells you right there. I mean, there's the hole in the ground, there's a hobbit. Now, if you're like me, you don't know what a hobbit is, that, you're kind of out of luck. But anyway, that's how it starts. Okay, here we go. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet a dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down on or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. Okay. A comfortable hobbit hole. Still ain't got any idea at that point what a hobbit is, but I'm thinking they got recliners in there, so something comfortable. All right, now this is a classic. Oh my gosh. Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea. Okay. By the way, did you know that when Ernest Hemingway wrote that book, it was the second draft of the book that the publisher bought? Because the first draft he wrote, it was called The Old Man and the Pond. And it was about an old man who gets towed around a pond by a brim in an aluminum boat. I'm just kidding. But, so here we go with The Old Man and the Sea, Ernest Hemingway. He was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream, and he had gone 84 days now without taking a fish. In the first 40 days, a boy had been with him. But after 40 days without a fish, the boy's parents had told him the old man was now definitely and finally Saleo, which is the worst form of unlucky, and the boy had gone at their orders in another boat, which caught 3 good fish the first week. It made the boy sad to see the old man come in each day with his skiff empty, and he always went down to help him carry either the coiled lines or the gaff and harpoon and the sail that was furled around the mast. The sail was patched with flour sacks and furled. It looked like the flag of permanent defeat. I'd have been proud of that first paragraph. Ernest Hemingway. Do you remember, Matt, do you, and Little M, are you old enough to remember the Partridge Family?
Just know the name. I've never seen it, I don't think.
Well, everybody knows the name of Partridge.
I mean, I know of it as a show.
Oh, you know. Little M, do you remember the show? David Cassidy? I Think I Love You? Point Me in the Direction of Albuquerque? How do you not know the Partridge Family? I mean, It's the opening. The opening song tells like what this story was about, but it was, "Come on now and meet everybody and hear us singing. There's nothing better than being together when we're singing. 5 of us and Mom working all day. We knew we could make it if the music would pay. Danny got Reuben to sell our songs, and it really came together when Mom sang along." That is the Partridge Family with a multicolored bus. Well, anyway, what I was going to tell you is that Keith, the character played by David Cassidy, "Well, I can feel your heartbeat," but I didn't even say a word. "Well, I can feel your heartbeat." He would always say, "Wah." So, like, "What think I love you? What think I can feel your heartbeat?" But anyway, David Cassidy played the part of Keith Partridge, a high school student who was also a rock star, which is where Hannah Montana got the thing. That's where they stole that from, the Partridge Family. So, in any case, Keith Partridge was a high school student, and he swore that his English teacher had it in for him. And his mother said, no, she doesn't. And so he turned in an essay by Ernest Hemingway. And the teacher gave it a C. I loved that episode. But Keith got in trouble. He got in trouble. Why would he get in trouble? Why wouldn't the teacher get in trouble? I thought he proved his point. Who said that? Who's that? Francis Kraft says, "Best first sentence ever, whistling a tune from Fiddler on the Roof. I used my tweezers to work a piece of Gloria Cunningham's skull out of the sky blue wall." From Hazardous Duty by Christy Barrett. That is a good first line. Okay, here's the first paragraph from The Burning Hills by Louis L'Amour. This is a good one. You ready? On a ridge above Texas Flat, upon a rock shaped like flame, a hand moved up the lava. The hand moved and then was still. In all that vast beige-gray silence, there was still no other movement and no sound. A buzzard swinging in lazy circles above the serrated ridge had glimpsed that moving hand. Swinging lower, he saw a man who lay among the rocks atop the ridge. He was a long-bodied man in worn boots and jeans, a man with wide shoulders and a lean, tough face. It was the face of a hunter, but now of a man hunted. A man who lay with his rifle beside him, who wore a belted gun. But the man still lived, and the buzzard could wait. Ooh, we might have a winner there. I mean, that's pretty good. Okay, this is first line from what may be my favorite book of all time. My favorite book of all time is probably The Old Man and the Boy by Robert Rourke. And this book, if you have not read The Old Man and the Boy, you're missing out. You're just missing out. Robert Rourke wrote this book before I was born. This book was written in 1957. And it's set in the 1920s and it's set in Wilmington, North Carolina, when the boy was living with his grandparents. Now, something was up with the mom and dad, but you just knew something was up. You didn't really know what, but for some reason he was at his grandparents a lot. And so the granddad was the old man, and the granddad would take him hunting and fishing and outdoors and to, oyster roasts and seeing turtles coming up on the seashore in the middle of the night. And I mean, the book is fantastic. It's so well written. It is unbelievable. But the wisdom passed down from the grandfather to the grandson is great. And when I first got a hold of this book, Trey Baird, an orthopedic surgeon in Mobile, had told me about this book. And I had not heard about it. And he said, yeah, my daddy gave it to me when I was 8, and I've read it 12 times, And I was like, really? And so I got the book, and on the cover of the book, it says over 150,000 copies sold. And I had read half of the first chapter, and I went and told Polly, I said, I'm embarrassed to have sold 1 million of anything when this book exists and has only sold 150,000 copies. This is one of the greatest books I've ever read in my life, and it turned out to be my favorite book. I've read it like 5 times now. And when I read the first chapter to Polly and the boys, and Austin said, that first chapter needs to be read at every hunting camp in America the night before opening day. And so anyway, here is the first paragraph from The Old Man and the Boy. The best thing about hunting and fishing, the old man said, is that you don't have to actually do it to enjoy it. You can go to bed every night thinking about how much fun you had 20 years ago, and it all comes back clear as moonlight. Isn't that great? There's another quote in there that I just added this quote just so that you guys could hear this. I think this quote is great too. Never knew a man not to be improved by a dog. That was the old man saying that. Never knew a man not to be improved by a dog. Okay, here we go with Mark Twain from The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. First paragraph. You don't know about me without you have read a book by the name of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. But that ain't no matter. That book was made by Mr. Mark Twain, and he told the truth, mainly. There was things which he stretched, but mainly he told the truth. That is, nothing. I never seen anybody but lied one time or another without it was Aunt Polly or the widow or maybe Mary, Aunt Polly, Tom's Aunt Polly, she is, and Mary, and the widow Douglas is all told about in that book, which is mostly a true book with some stretchers, as I said before. Okay, now this book, you may not have heard of this book or this author, but make a note of this author, because this guy is great. I found his books in an independent bookstore in Wisconsin one time. His name is Michael Perry, and he's the New York Times bestselling author of Population 485. Population, is it 485? Is it 485? Have I got the number right?
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember the name. But Population 485, Meeting Your Neighbors One Siren at a Time. Okay? And he's written 10 or 12 books. And I'm going to tell you, he is one of my favorite authors. He writes well. His stuff, it can bring a tear to your eye, but it can also make you laugh out loud. And so this is from a book of essays that he has called Peaceful Persistence. And I just picked the first chapter of one of the essays. So this is Michael Perry, and you can find Michael Perry at sneezingcow.com. He was raised on a dairy farm and still lives in the town. It went away and did a bunch of things and has come back and writing there. All right, here we go. This is from Peaceful Persistence by Michael Perry. The fact that I was unmarried until my 39th year may be traceable to the fact that when Lisa Kettering invited me to the Sadie Hawkins dance, I picked her up in a hearse driven by my friend Bob, who went by the name Bullwinkle. This was my first date, ever. I was not sure how these things went. As I recall, we sat three abreast in the front seat despite all the room available in the back. Shoulder to shoulder, we arrived at the high school gymnasium. I recall there being straw bales, and further adding to the glory of the evening for Lisa, I warned her beforehand that due to personal religious strictures, I was not allowed to actually dance at the Sadie Hawkins dance. We may have snuck a near motionless slow one, but mostly I just remember sitting there while Lisa talked to the other girls. When Bullwinkle and I dropped her off that night, I saw her safely to her door, but there was no kiss, as I was both too dumb and too dumbstruck to know what to do other than to say goodnight. I don't believe I tried to shake her hand, but my memory is fogged by time and obstructed by cringing. Is that great? I mean, the guy can write. That is Michael Perry. Google him or go on Amazon or go on his site, sneezingcow.com. Heather Olson in Salt Lake says, just ordered The Old Man and the Boy. And she says, thanks, I'm never disappointed in your recommendations. Heather, I know that your husband and your boys hunt and fish. You are going to freak out over this book. I'm just telling you, this book, and so just make sure you tell me what you think, okay? Okay, now, here we're, Clay Patterson says, and this is good, A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Yep, that's the opening line. Jennifer Budd said, the funniest thing I ever read was Cow Dung Custard. Who wrote that? Who wrote Cow Dung Custard? It actually sounds like something Michael Perry would have written. Okay, here's the last of the great authors. All right, and this is from a book called. This is also one of my favorite authors, and it's also a book of essays. The book is called Exploding Hush Puppies by Lesley Ann Terabella. All right, now, Lesley Ann is a columnist, and her stuff is in newspapers all over. She has a couple of books called The Majorettes Are Back in Town and Exploding Hush Puppies. And so listen to this first paragraph from one of the essays in Exploding Hush Puppies. My favorite thing about going to church when I was a little girl was arts and crafts time. I loved making things and spent more time making paper plate tambourines and Bible verse paper chains than any other kid in town. I could literally write a book on how to use toilet paper rolls to create a tribute to every single book of the Bible, all the animals in the ark, and if glitter was added, the resurrection itself. Is that great? So Lesley Ann Terabella, I think that's lesleyannterabella.com, right? I think so, but you can find her books very easily. They're great. Okay, now, to close, I'm going to read the opening paragraph from 5 of mine, and we're going to determine how I stack up against these masters, all right? And I have tried, okay, so judge me kindly. I have tried. This is from The Lost Choice. Casimir shielded his eyes with both hands as he peered intently into the sun's last rays. Another tear made a track through the dust on his browned face and fell from his chin. His age was 11 summers now, almost a man, and his father's falcon was missing. Kind of sad, isn't it? Not going to tell you what happened. Okay? This is the first paragraph in the noticer. His name was Jones. At least that's what I called him. Not Mr. Jones, just Jones. He called me young man or son, and I rarely heard him call anyone else by name either. It was always young man or young lady, child or son. He was old, but the kind of old that is difficult to quantify. Was he 65 or 80 or 180? And every single time I ever laid eyes on him, he had an old brown suitcase close at hand. There's the noticer. Now, the Traveler's Gift. I remember agonizing over this because this was the first novel I had written. And so Jennifer Budd says, Paul Jennings wrote Cow Dung Custard. Her sister and she were in a shop and reading this story and laughed in the shop. I bet that was. I bet that just sounds funny to me. Okay, here's the first paragraph from The Traveler's Gift. Headlights swept the house as the taxi turned out of the driveway. David Ponder stood alone on his front lawn, looking at the home where he and his wife, Ellen, had lived for more than 20 years. David lowered himself onto the grass. Nausea poured over him as he felt panic enter his very soul. Like a serpent easing up his spine and wrapping itself around his throat, it wasn't a quick, devastating attack, but a slow, gripping realization that life, as he knew it, was over. He was 46 years old. He had no job. He had no money. He had no purpose. So that's the first paragraph in The Traveler's Gift. Charles Knox says that The Lost Choice is his favorite. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, here is the sequel to the Traveler's Gift, The Traveler's Summit. First paragraph. It is amazing, isn't it, how one sound can distinguish itself from another? When the hustle and bustle around us is intrusive and overwhelming, how do our minds separate from the din that solitary ringtone? Or how, on a playground vibrating with the chatter of youngsters, do we manage to quickly distinguish the single voice of our own child? It was with those curious thoughts easing in and out of his mind that Carl Santiago looked up from the security desk. After all, it was almost time to close, which meant that dozens of workers were flooding the lobby, ready to leave for the day. Among them, Carl knew, was Gloria, who would be departing at the end of her shift. Still, he marveled at his ability to pick out the distinct sound of her high heels clicking across the marble floor of the lobby. Traveler's Summit. And here's the last one. This is The Heartmender. Okay? This book's actually my favorite book that I've written. It's not anywhere near the bestseller, but I think when people read it, they like it the best. So, I hear that. Well, anyway, so here's the first paragraph from The Heartmender. It is early summer as I sit at my desk and finally begin the process of sorting what I know to be true from what I merely suspect. As I form the words and type them into record, I shall endeavor to separate facts from the legend and myth in which they have now been shrouded for decades. As an author, I usually have a particular work living in my head, complete with its title, plot, subplots, and ending, for months before leaping as fully formed as I can make it onto the page. At present, however, I haven't even a working title for this manuscript. The book you are holding, if indeed it has come to that, was nothing I ever intended to write. My next 2 books have been outlined and are ready to begin, but I've become distracted by an attempt to solve a mystery literally thrust into my life by the earth itself. Let me explain. And so there's the travel gifts. And, you know, I have to admit, so who said that? Wait, who said that? Mike Williams said the Traveler Summit had me on the edge of my seat trying to find the answer. You didn't skip ahead. Good for you. I'm proud of you. Katrina Hansen says that Heartmender is her favorite book. And Sarah Smith says, mine too. I love the Heartmender. Brenda Hayes loves Heartmender. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let me just tell you that sitting here after reading the opening paragraphs from Hemingway and Twain and Robert Rourke and Tarabella and Perry, and then reading mine, I still have a lot to learn. They are very consistent. I give myself like a C plus or a B minus. That's what I give myself. So compared stacking up to those 10. So, and of these, I think I probably like the Noticer Beginning the best. You know, it just kind of introduces Jones right off the bat. And I looked through the first paragraphs of all my books this morning, figuring out which 5 I wanted to read, and I don't think I blew it in any of them, but some are better than the others, and but all those 10 are better than what I've written, and so I'll keep trying if you guys keep reading. You guys, thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate you guys in the studio and appreciate you guys there at home. And I will not be here Thursday. Okay, so we're gonna have to wait till next week for another Blue Plate special, and then we go straight time Tuesdays and Thursdays again. But I will be out of town on Thursday, and I will see you next week. Thank you guys for being with us. Take care.